The Galactic Assembly had existed for 12,000 years before humanity joined. In that time, countless species had contributed to the great civilization. The brought faster-than-light travel, the mastered energy manipulation. The minds created artificial intelligence that could think across dimensions. Every species brought something valuable to the table. But nobody expected what the humans would bring. Ambassador Vex stood before the Assembly Council, his translator implant working overtime to process the clicking, humming, and telepathic projections of the 37 species representatives before him. He was nervous. Earth had been part of the galactic community for only 50 years, and humans were still considered primitive newcomers. The High Chancellor, a massive crystalline being named Prism of Endless Light, spoke first. Its voice resonated through the chamber like wind chimes in a storm. Human representative, we have reviewed your species' application for technical contribution status. We are confused by your submission. Nodded respectfully. How may I clarify, High Chancellor? You have submitted something called documentation. We do not understand its purpose. This was the moment had prepared for. He smiled softly. May I demonstrate rather than explain? The council agreed. What followed would change galactic civilization forever. Called up a holographic display showing a jump drive, the standard faster-than-light engine used by every ship in the galaxy. The technology was 8,000 years old. How many species in this chamber can build a jump drive from scratch? Asked. Silence filled the room. Finally, the ambassador raised a tendril. Only we possess the knowledge. It is passed down through our genetic memory from engineer to engineer. And if something happened to your species, pressed gently, if a plague or disaster struck, would this knowledge survive? More silence. The question had never been asked because nobody wanted to consider such darkness. Humans cannot store knowledge in genetic memory, continued. We cannot share thoughts telepathically we cannot instantly upload skills like the minds. We had to find another way to preserve and share knowledge. He pulled up another display. This one showed a simple document with text, diagrams, numbered steps, and annotations. We call this a manual, an instruction guide, documentation. The ambassador made a sound of dismissal. Words on a screen, how primitive. Perhaps agreed, but watch. He called forward a human technician named Sarah. She had never seen a jump drive before today. She had no engineering background. She worked as a librarian on the human diplomatic vessel. Handed her a tablet containing a manual that human technical writers had spent 3 months creating. It documented the jump drive with step-by-step instructions, clear diagrams, troubleshooting guides, and safety warnings. Sarah, please attempt to repair this intentionally damaged jump drive component, said, gesturing to a piece of equipment on the demonstration table. The council watched in disbelief as Sarah read through the manual. She asked no questions. She received no telepathic guidance. She simply followed the written instructions. 40 minutes later, the component was repaired perfectly. The chamber erupted in chaos. The ambassador was the most affected. Impossible. That repair requires 300 years of training. Our youngest engineers cannot perform it without guidance from their elders. Sarah learned it in 40 minutes, said calmly, because we wrote it down in a way anyone can understand. High Chancellor Prism of Endless Light leaned forward, light refracting wildly through its crystalline form. You are saying that humans can transfer complex knowledge to anyone through these documents. Not just transfer, corrected, preserve, standardize, improve. When knowledge is written down, it can be studied, questioned, and refined. Errors can be found and fixed. Better methods can be discovered and shared. He paused for effect. Every species here guards their greatest technologies like sacred treasures. You share them reluctantly, and only through methods that keep others dependent on you. Humans learned long ago that knowledge grows when it is given freely and clearly. The impact of this demonstration rippled across the galaxy in the following months. First came the requests. Species wanted humans to document their technologies, the wanted jump drive manuals, the wanted energy manipulation guides. Even the minds who had always considered themselves superior wanted humans to document their dimensional computing systems. The human government established the Documentation Corps. Thousands of technical writers, educators, and knowledge specialists were trained and deployed across the galaxy. Their job was simple but revolutionary. Watch, learn, and write it down so anyone could understand. The results were immediate and dramatic. A young mechanic fixed a power core using a human-written manual. This had never happened before. They had always sent their own technicians for such repairs, charging enormous fees. Now anyone could do it. A colony that had lost its connection to the collective consciousness survived because they had human documentation of their own biological systems. Before the manuals, they would have died not knowing how to maintain themselves as individuals. A mind that had corrupted its core programming was restored by other minds using a human troubleshooting guide. Previously, such corruption meant permanent death because no one knew how to fix it. But not everyone was happy with this change. The old powers saw their influence slipping away. For thousands of years, they had maintained control by being the only ones who truly understood their technologies. Now that knowledge was being democratized through human documentation, a secret coalition formed. They called themselves the Keepers of Sacred Knowledge. Their goal was to stop humanity's documentation project by any means necessary. Their first strike came against the human documentation vessel Prometheus. The ship carried the largest collection of technical manuals ever assembled, covering technologies from over 200 species. The attack came without warning. 3 warships from unknown origins emerged from hyperspace and opened fire. The Prometheus was a civilian vessel with minimal defenses. Captain knew his ship was doomed, but he refused to let the knowledge die with them. "All hands initiate Protocol Infinite Copy," he ordered. This was a procedure unique to human vessels. Every document on the ship was simultaneously transmitted to every human colony, every allied station, and every open communication network in the galaxy. The manuals were encoded into millions of separate data packets, scattered across the stars like seeds in the wind. The Prometheus was destroyed, all hands were lost, but the knowledge survived. When the news reached Earth, the response was not fear, it was determination. The human government made a declaration that echoed across the galaxy. "You have attacked our ship, you have killed our people, but you have failed to destroy what truly matters. Knowledge, once documented and shared, cannot be unwritten. It lives in every copy, every mind that reads it, every hand that follows its instructions. You fight against something that cannot be defeated because it exists everywhere and nowhere." The declaration continued with an announcement that shocked the galaxy. Humanity will now begin documenting everything, not just technology. We will document history, culture, art, music, philosophy, and language. We will preserve the heritage of every species that wishes it. We will create a library of the galaxy that will outlast any empire, survive any disaster, and belong to everyone. The project was called the Universal Archive. Thousands of humans spread across known space. They visited dying civilizations and recorded their final stories. They sat with ancient beings and wrote down memories that would otherwise be lost when those beings passed. They compiled the collected wisdom of 12,000 years of galactic civilization into clear, accessible formats. The Keepers of Sacred Knowledge launched more attacks. They destroyed stations, killed and corrupted data networks, but they could not stop the spread of information. For every they killed, 10 more volunteered. For every archive they destroyed, 100 copies had already been made. The humans had learned from their own history that burning books only makes people want to read them more. 5 years after the destruction of the Prometheus, the first complete edition of the Universal Archive was released. It contained documentation for every major technology in the galaxy. It held the histories of over 5,000 species, including many that had gone extinct. It preserved languages that had not been spoken in. It included art, music, stories, and philosophical traditions from across the stars. And it was free, available to anyone with a data connection. The effects transformed galactic society within a generation. Young beings from poor species could now learn skills that had previously been restricted to wealthy elites. Colony worlds that had been dependent on core worlds for technical support became self-sufficient. Small civilizations that had been dominated by larger ones gained the knowledge to stand as equals. The old power structures crumbled not through violence, but through education. They saw their monopoly on jump drive technology end, but they also saw their drive systems improved by engineers from dozens of species who could now study the designs openly. Innovation flourished when knowledge was shared rather than hoarded. They initially resisted the change, but their younger generation embraced the human approach to documentation. They began writing their own manuals, improving on human techniques with their natural attention to energy flow and precision. Even the minds, the most ancient and proud of the galactic species, acknowledged the value of human documentation. They began collaborating with human writers to create guides that merged their dimensional thinking with human clarity. 50 years after the Universal Archive was released, the High Chancellor called humanity before the Assembly once more. Prism of Endless Light had been replaced by a new Chancellor, a hybrid being grown from the merged genetic material of 12 species. Such beings had been impossible before, but now the knowledge to create them was freely available. Humanity, the new Chancellor spoke. You joined this assembly as primitives. You had no great technology, no ancient wisdom, no special biological gifts. Yet you have transformed our civilization more than any species in our history. The human ambassador, an elderly woman named Doctor, bowed respectfully. We only did what comes naturally to us, she said. When we learn something, we write it down. When we write it down, we want others to read it. When others read it, they teach us how to write it better. This is the cycle of human knowledge. The Chancellor made a gesture of profound respect. The Assembly has decided to honor humanity with a new designation. You are no longer classified as a developing species. You are now recognized as the keepers and sharers of galactic knowledge. Doctor accepted the honor with tears in her eyes. That night, she sat alone in her quarters and wrote in her personal journal. It was a habit she had kept since childhood, recording her thoughts and experiences in simple words. She wrote about the ceremony. She wrote about her pride in humanity. She wrote about her hope for the future. And then, as she had done every night for 60 years, she saved the file to the Universal Archive. Because that was what humans did. They documented everything. And in doing so, they ensured that nothing truly important would ever be forgotten.